Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've just worked our way through probably the most critical report we've seen all year. It's the U.S. Sovereign Stability Assessment for Q4 2025.
And our mission here is really to unpack one central finding. The report says the U.S. is on the precipice of systemic transformation.
Which is a polite way of saying something is deeply wrong.
It is. They're calling it a phase of critical sovereign instability. And just to put numbers on it right away, the U.S. is scored as a Stage 3 crisis with a Sovereign Vulnerability Index of 8.75.
Wow. And a critical collapse, risk HCR 8.6. So let's start with the money. Why is the economic engine, as the report puts it, seizing up?
Well, it all starts with a fiscal integrity shock.
Yeah.
The political gridlock finally pushed Moody's to downgrade the U.S. sovereign rating. That was back in May, from A down to AA1.
And that's not just a headline. That has real-world effects.
Oh, absolutely. The immediate impact, the thing you would feel, is that real average weekly wages actually went down.
By 0.68%. Now, that sounds like a small number. Is it really enough to cause this kind of insecurity?
It is, because it's a persistent drain. It means the average family is suddenly putting essentials on a credit card. Yeah. And when that happens, where does the big money go?
To safety.
To safety. People just fled the dollar. That's why we saw gold prices surge to over $4,340 an ounce. It's a massive vote of no confidence.
So the financial trust is gone. But that collapse of confidence didn't just stop with the economy, it infected the institutions. Let's get into the Constitutional Unraveling Index, which is sitting at a terrifying 84.3.
Yeah, and what's so critical here is the shift from, let's say, political resistance to outright defiance.
Defiance of the courts.
Of the highest court. The report details the administration defying a Supreme Court stay order. The Kilmar Abrego Garcia deportation case, they ignored it. The rule of law was being bypassed.
And it wasn't just the judiciary they targeted, it was the government itself, the permanent structure.
Exactly. The Schedule F civil service purge, that was a turning point. We're talking about stripping job protections from, what was it, over 200,000 federal employees?
200,000.
In places like the Department of Defense, the UFDA. It basically turns the entire civil service into a partisan tool.
Which leads to the inevitable outcome. Public confidence in Congress cratering to just 4%.
4%. How can a government function when one of its core branches has basically zero public mandate? The system is broken.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me, the social reaction, the narrative dissonance index, the no kings movement. What does that tell us?
It tells us the scale of the resistance is, well, the report calls it pre-revolutionary. They mobilized an estimated 7 million people.
7 million.
Across 2,700 different locations. That's not just a protest. That's a sustained nationwide rejection of the government's legitimacy.
And this fracturing is now becoming, I guess, formalized. People are talking seriously about breaking up the country.
It's gone mainstream. We're now seeing polling that shows somewhere between 20 and 25% of Americans support a national divorce. They think the union itself is broken beyond repair.
So you have the economic collapse, the institutional decay, the mass social fracture. What's the report's final verdict on all this?
The verdict is that the U.S. is no longer a flawed democracy. It's transitioning into what's called a hybrid regime. Meaning the forms of democracy are still there. Yep. Elections, courts, but they mask an authoritarian reality. The self-correcting mechanisms are gone.
Which brings us to the single most chilling line in the entire assessment. It states the risk of kinetic conflict, actual fighting, between federal forces and state or civil actors is at its highest point since 1860.
Right before the Civil War. That's the risk level we're at because you have this massive consolidation of executive power clashing with enormous organized internal resistance.
So here's the final thought for you to take away. The report makes it clear this is all fundamentally a crisis of trust. When an institution like Congress has only 4% public confidence, its power is basically gone. But that power doesn't just vanish. Where does it go?
It flows to non-institutional movements.
Exactly. It flows to things like that 7 million person protest. So the question becomes, what happens next when the basic social contract holding everything together